Consider this. America's monumental gateways to the world, once thundering with the pulse of humanity, have fallen into a profound, echoing silence. Picture the vast terminals, where the sound of laughter once cascaded through the air, now usurped by the lonely drone of vacant escalators. From one shoreline to the other, the very airports that stood as monuments to American prestige are now mere phantoms of their glorious past. A matter of economics, or something far more profound, a fundamental shift in the world's perception of the United States. Keep watching, because the final airport we'll expose was once the planet's most beloved destination. Today, it's whispered to be the most terrifying. Kicking off our descent at number 9, Las Vegas. The shimmering illusion in the desert has dissolved. It defies belief. Las Vegas, the metropolis engineered from pure neon fantasy, now hosts an airport that feels like a heat haze shimmering into nothingness. Harry Reid International, a hub that once pulsed with the energy of over 4 million international souls each month, has witnessed its arrivals plummet to a mere 1.5 million in 2025, a staggering 62% freefall from its 2019 peak. For a city whose lifeblood is a constant torrent of weddings, conventions, and nocturnal celebrations, this deficit is catastrophic, and the frontline workers in the hotels are the first to feel the shockwave. 1. Receptionist on the Strip paints a vivid picture of a time when the cacophony of Chinese, Korean, and Australian voices filled the lobby. A symphony of laughter punctuated by cues that snaked for hours. Now, she reports, the most dominant sound is the monotonous drone of the air conditioner. This void is not merely spatial, it is a deep economic chasm. A decline in guests translates directly to shuttered hotel floors, silent casino tables, and devastating staff reductions across resorts that were once eternal monuments to sleepless energy. So what is behind this precipitous falloff in international visitors? The analysis is stark. The United States is no longer perceived as the most accessible or secure destination. Grueling visa ordeals, invasive security screenings, and escalating expenses are tilting the scales in favor of Europe or Asia as more appealing alternatives. A young traveler from Singapore offered a blunt assessment. I choose Europe. The navigation is simpler, the environment feels safer, and I'm not made to feel like a suspect upon arrival. This exact sentiment reverberates across the Asian continent, where organized tours to the US have cratered by nearly 46% in just 2 years. The data on luxury hotel reservations by international clientele in Las Vegas tells a similar story, plummeting by over 50%. The consequences are not theoretical. They are tangible. 3 powerhouse Asian airlines, once keen to establish routes into Vegas, have completely severed their direct connections to the city. In a historic reversal, for the first time in decades, global competitors like Tokyo, Paris, and Seoul now project an image of being more approachable and more inviting than Sin City itself. Las Vegas was engineered to be the undisputed entertainment capital of the world. If this beacon of neon and spectacle is dimming into a desert silence, what does that signal about the magnetic pull of America at large? And if a giant like Vegas is faltering, what fate awaits the airports in the nation's very heartland? Hubs that once embodied the ideal of connection itself. One of those titans, Chicago O'Hare, is a story of a fall from grace so severe it's almost unbelievable. Number 8. Chicago O'Hare, the Titan gateway that has lost its nerve. Visualize this scene. 4 entire international gates at one of the nation's premier aviation hubs, plunged into darkness, sealed and silent, not due to a storm, not halted by a strike, but shuttered for a far more chilling reason. There are simply not enough human beings to warrant their operation. This is the grim new reality at Chicago O'Hare International, an airport that once held the title of the second busiest hub in the entire United States. As of April 2025, the vital arteries of direct flights from Frankfurt, Seoul, and even Toronto. Routes that were once the airport's lifeblood have been surgically severed, with no definitive schedule for their restoration. The statistics behind this are nothing short of staggering. International passenger volume has plummeted by more than 55% against the 2019 benchmark, a catastrophic collapse that has hollowed out not just the airport, but the entire regional economy. The duty-free emporiums are boarded up, the restaurants have gone cold, and the few travelers who navigate O'Hare's once teeming corridors now move through a world of muted light. Cavernous rows of empty seats, haunted by the disembodied echo of automated announcements reverberating across abandoned concourses. What was once a proud gateway to the planet now feels like a purgatory for a flight with no departure time. So why has Chicago's magnetic pull failed? The analysis reveals a cause far deeper than ticket prices. In the wake of the societal fractures of 2020, the city became saddled with a reputation, whether deserved or not, for being unsafe. Global news networks broadcast a relentless stream of imagery, of civil discord, of audacious daylight transgressions, and of raw urban violence, directly into the living rooms of Europe and Asia. And those perceptions became permanent. For any traveler orchestrating that singular once-in-a-lifetime journey to America, personal security is a non-negotiable prerequisite. As a German tour operator confessed, "My clients now request Boston or Seattle. Chicago is no longer perceived as a secure environment." The shockwaves of this perception continue to expand, far beyond the terminal. At O'Hare, a tour coordinator who once greeted weekly delegations from Germany, South Korea, and Brazil now stares at an empty calendar for 2025. Half of her team is already gone. Her assessment is brutal. It feels like Chicago has been erased from the map and the tourism sector is ground zero. This triggers an alarming question. If America's third largest city, with its legendary skyline and rich cultural tapestry, can no longer command the world's attention, what is this signal for smaller destinations that live or die by foreign arrivals? The answer is waiting in Orlando, the so-called happiest airport on Earth, where the silence is a deafening roar. Number 7. Orlando, the Magic Kingdom without a crowd. There was a time when Orlando International was the portal to pure fantasy, filled with families towing Mickey-shaped balloons, children cloaked in wizard robes, and parents watching lifelong dreams unfold in real time. But in 2025, the arrival halls of MCO feel less like the start of a dream vacation and more like a desolate, abandoned film set. Immigration desks are unstaffed. Taxi queues stretch on, devoid of passengers. Nearby hotels are struggling at a catastrophic 35% occupancy, a fatal blow to what was once the vibrant heart of America's family travel empire. The analysis reveals the problem isn't the destinations. Disney and Universal have not lost their allure. The problem is the impenetrable wall America has erected around its own magic. For international travelers, the obstacles are insurmountable. Astronomical airfares, runaway hotel costs, and the most significant roadblock of all, the visa. Canadian families, for whom Orlando was once a second home, now face a 4-month bureaucratic purgatory for a simple tourist visa. Compare this to Japan or South Korea, where an e-visa can be processed in a matter of days. As one Vancouver family stated unequivocally, "We are choosing Tokyo Disney. It's more affordable, the process is seamless, and we don't feel like we're being interrogated just for wanting to visit." The hard data confirms this mass exodus. A 2025 survey by the Family Travel Association revealed that only 1 in 5 Canadian parents intends to bring their children to the United States within the next 3 years. Just 6 years ago, that number was 4 out of 5. This is not a statistical dip, it is a tectonic shift in the landscape of family travel. And the fallout is brutal. For the first time in 2 decades, Universal Studios reported a summer operating loss. Not even the 2008 financial meltdown. could halt Orlando's theme park juggernaut. But now, entire vacation packages are being voided before the first suitcase is even packed. What's not happening in Orlando is a stark symbol of America's broader tourism collapse. The nation's attractions are still world-class, but the experience of simply getting here, the prohibitive costs, the hostile security, the unwelcoming bureaucracy, makes the magic feel utterly out of reach. Every empty hotel room is a paycheck stolen from. Housekeepers, shuttle drivers, and the small restaurant owners who built their livelihoods on the annual summer surge. And here lies the haunting truth. When children stop dreaming. Of Mickey, when parents no longer save for that pilgrimage to Florida, America loses more than revenue. It loses its cultural gravity, its family, traditions, and a core piece of its identity as the land of dreams. If Orlando, the happiest place on earth, is half deserted, what chance does a city like Detroit have? A city where the local economy itself seems to have given up on a comeback? Number 6, Detroit, the airport, where the hope finally dried up. Walking through Detroit Metro Airport today is like stepping onto the set of a city put on pause. Gates stand agape, not to welcome surging crowds of passengers, but to reveal vast expanses of empty seats and flight boards with few updates. The electric buzz of trade shows, auto expos, and international delegations has been replaced by a quiet so heavy the hum of the fluorescent lights feels deafening. For a metropolis that once defined American resilience, Detroit's DTW has witnessed international passenger traffic disintegrate by nearly 59% compared to its pre-pandemic peak. Back in 2019, Uber drivers treated the airport as their primary B, cycling through 8 to 10 fares a day. Now, one driver admits he might secure a single trip, and it's often to drop off someone who is leaving the country permanently. The airport that was meant to be the engine of Detroit's revival is instead becoming its final departure lounge. A haunting reflection of its past traumas, industrial collapse, a hemorrhaging population, and now a tourism industry left to wither. The critical lifelines are being severed. Major airlines have systematically cut direct international routes to Detroit, rerouting the world through New York, Boston, or Toronto. The immediate fallout relegates Detroit to a secondary destination, a layover, draining not just visitors but the very confidence of investors. Conventions that once animated the city now bypass it entirely. The inconvenience of access, a fatal flaw. And as an airport is erased from the global grid, its local economy bleeds out. The cascade is brutal and swift. Hotels witness a wave of cancellations. Restaurants serve empty tables. Shuttle services grind to a halt. Even logistics firms watch contracts dissolve. A direct consequence of freight lines, once tethered to passenger flights, now charting new courses. What makes Detroit's situation so agonizing is the palpable evaporation of hope. Other cities with ghost-like airports are at least mounting a counteroffensive, fighting to rebrand and reclaim their allure. Detroit, shackled by debt and safety perceptions, seems frozen. Its stillness is more than a tourism slump. It's the echo of a region that has failed to convince the world, and perhaps itself, that its revival is more than a myth. The most brutal truth may be this: the world has stopped waiting for Detroit's comeback. When the very emblem of connection transforms into a monument of departure, it forces a question no one is prepared to answer. Can a city that lost its factories now lose its final desperate bid for revival? And if Detroit, the former industrial heart of a nation, is being methodically wiped from the international map, what fate awaits a city like New Orleans, where culture itself was the promised salvation, but even jazz can no longer fill the silence of? An empty terminal? Number 5, New Orleans, where the music is dying. Inside Louis Armstrong International Airport, the faint echo of a saxophone still haunts the halls. A ghostly tribute to the city's soul as the cradle of jazz. But herein lies the tragedy. The music now plays to an empty house. Performances once staged to welcome the world have been silenced. Not because the music stopped, but because the audience vanished. The data is a death knell. International passenger traffic through MSY has imploded by over 62% in a single year, casting an eerie stillness over a city once defined by its vibrant, chaotic pulse. The arteries that once connected New Orleans to Paris, Rome, and Mexico City are now either choked or completely severed. This is not a travel advisory, it's a cultural hemorrhage. The French, the Italians, the Latin Americans, the global pilgrims who once journeyed here for Creole flavors and Mardi Gras revelry are now a fading memory. Without their presence, the cosmopolitan soul of New Orleans feels dangerously thin, brittle. The causes are a complex, toxic brew, as layered as the city's signature gumbo. Punishing tourism taxes, Byzantine health insurance mandates for foreign visitors, and the relentless barrage of hurricanes that shatter not just infrastructure, but confidence. Compounding this is the prohibitive cost of entry into the United States, from exorbitant airfares to demoralizing visa processes. It's a simple calculation. International travelers are now opting for Lisbon, Mexico City, or Bangkok. The question they're asking is stark. Why pay a premium for more rules and less welcome? The local impact is catastrophic. Hotels that once thrived on year-round bookings are now staring into the abyss of dangerously low occupancy. For the musicians, bartenders, and artisans who are the lifeblood of this city, every canceled flight is a direct hit to their livelihood. In New Orleans, culture is not a commodity. It is the entire economic engine. And right now, that engine is seizing. But the most profound question cuts deeper. If New Orleans, a city forged in resilience, music, and defiant joy, can lose its grip on the global imagination, what does that signal about the decline of America's own cultural gravity? When the Big Easy becomes this hard to reach, perhaps the world is sending a message we refuse to hear. And if the sound of jazz can't overcome the silence in New Orleans, consider the crisis in Denver. Once America's premier inland hub, now watching its domestic roots vanish as Americans themselves seek their escapes elsewhere. Case number 4, Denver, the terminal that has become a monument to an America that no longer travels within its own borders. Denver International Airport. It was once the very heart of the nation's circulatory system. Its iconic, sprawling canopy, a symbol of boundless connection and American potential. A relentless ballet of aircraft stitched the country together, a nexus for over 70 million souls annually. A staggering figure that placed it among the world's most critical aviation hubs. Yet fast forward to 2025, and the scene is chilling. Boarding areas lie dormant, the check-in counters silent tombs. Their silence punctuated only by the hollow echo of a lone suitcase drifting across the cold expanse. The data from the first 6 months of 2025 is a death knell. More than 400 domestic routes have been severed. It's a catastrophic hemorrhage for a city once lauded as the vital center of the nation's aerial arteries. The critical question: what's driving this collapse? The stark, unavoidable truth is that domestic air travel has priced out the very citizens it was meant to serve. The human cost is captured in the words of a mother from nearby Aurora, Colorado. My son's grandmother in Florida, we wanted to visit, but the ticket was nearly $900 for a round trip. We just couldn't. What was once a routine, an accessible connector for the middle class, has been reclassified as an unattainable luxury. And the central paradox is this: while the nation's interior hollows out, Americans are not staying put. They are escaping abroad in unprecedented waves. The analytics from Booking.com are stark. International travel by Americans has surged by 37%, while domestic journeys have plummeted by a devastating 18%. The rationale is brutally simple. In the economic reality of 2025, a transatlantic flight to Portugal is now cheaper than a cross-country trip to California. A meal in Athens is more affordable than lunch in Miami, but the most damning indictment is a qualitative one. Travelers report a warmer reception on foreign soil. This profound reversal carries with it consequences that are nothing short of profound. Denver's entire architecture, its very reason for being, was to serve as a national connector, a place for families to reunite, for commerce to bridge coasts, for a diverse culture to converge. In the heartland, that foundational purpose is now dissolving into thin air. This hub isn't just hemorrhaging flights, it's shedding its very identity as a unifier of the nation. And if its own citizens can no longer find passage across their homeland affordable or welcoming, what becomes of that uniquely American ideal? The great continental journey, modernized for the age of flight. The cavernous silence of Denver International is more than a sign of canceled holidays. It's an alarm, signaling the unraveling of the national fabric itself. Because when a people cease to travel among themselves, they cease to connect. This collapse in domestic aviation is not a mere data point on a spreadsheet. It's a narrative of growing distance. A distance measured not only in miles, but in culture, in empathy, and in shared understanding. And if the very heartland hub of America is being hollowed out, the scenario unfolding in Honolulu is nothing short of a tragedy. Because Hawaii was never just another domestic vacation spot. It was an icon, a beacon of paradise for an entire generation of Asian travelers, a dream that is now ending. Our third case study, Honolulu, a paradise lost to emptiness. For generations, Honolulu International was the gateway to an idyllic vision. A world of turquoise water, of liquid gold sunsets, and an aloha spirit that became the global definition of paradise. But in 2025, that perfect postcard is cracking, its colors bleeding away with alarming speed. To traverse the terminals of HNL today is to be confronted by a deafening silence. Duty-free storefronts are dark. 40 separate food vendors have ceased operations, leaving once thriving concourses feeling like desolate, forgotten film sets. The most devastating blow, the critical artery that has been severed, comes from Japan, historically Hawaii's most steadfast and vital tourism partner. In the pre-pandemic era, Japanese arrivals constituted more than 60% of all international visitors. By 2025, that number has cratered, plummeting by an 81%, catastrophic compared to its peak in 2019. Key routes from Tokyo, Osaka, and Sapporo have been drastically scaled back or cut entirely, casting entire sections of the airport into shadow. A Japanese employee who has witnessed this decline from the front line since 1998 shared a chilling testimony. "My day was once a blur of hundreds of Japanese customers. Now, if I see a handful in an entire week, I count myself fortunate. Many of my colleagues are already gone." The economic shockwave is devastating. Entire generations of Hawaiian families whose livelihoods were woven into the tourism industry, from hotel staff to tour operators, are now confronting a future defined by crippling uncertainty. In an economy fundamentally built upon service, this exodus of travelers isn't merely a statistical downturn. It's a cascade of real-world crises, empty grocery carts, defaulted mortgages, and families teetering on the brink. Yet beneath this economic devastation lies a more insidious cause. A seismic cultural shift is rippling through the social media ecosystems of Japan and Korea. A quiet but potent movement to turn away from America has taken root. Young travelers are openly declaring, "Why go to the US?" The verdict they've reached is damning. It's perceived as unwelcoming, hazardous, and prohibitively expensive. Factor in Washington's geopolitical friction, trade disputes, and viral images of unrest, and suddenly paradise is fractured by politics. For a wave of Asian travelers, the calculation is simple: pivot to Bali, Seoul, or Okinawa. Destinations that promise less friction, greater proximity, and a crucial sense of security. Herein lies the tragedy. Hawaii, an island jewel, is inextricably chained to the mainland's geopolitical turmoil. Its economic fate is dictated by decisions made in Washington, yet the consequences rain down upon its people. The local population never signed up for trade disputes or bureaucratic walls, but they are the ones left to pay the ultimate price as the skies fall silent. This raises a chilling, critical question. If Hawaii, the very emblem of America's idyllic escape, can no longer justify the journey, what hope remains for the gateways on the mainland? In San Francisco, the narrative shifts from paradise lost to a paradise that has poisoned itself from within. This is a city that rose as a global titan of technology, only to watch its airport become an empty monument, abandoned by a world too wary to step outside its gates. Number 2. San Francisco, the tech capital that has become a flyover territory. There was a time when San Francisco International was a beacon of progress, a symbol of boundless global reach. This was the nexus of startups, of venture capital, of the iconic Golden Gate, a prized territory where carriers waged war for a direct line into the heart of Silicon Valley. But the year 2025 reveals a starkly different reality on SFO's departure boards. In the first quarter alone, a staggering 6 international airlines have vanished from the schedules. Lufthansa, ANA, Air China, Scandinavian Airlines, gone. The immediate result? A catastrophic loss of over 800,000 international passengers. Year over year, terminals that once pulsed with ambition now echo with a disquieting silence. The analysis is brutal and swift. The failure is not the airport, but the city it serves. Passengers emerging from SFO step directly into a narrative of collapse, a crisis of urban decay broadcast by headlines across the globe. Vast landscapes of makeshift shelters, a public health emergency unfolding on the sidewalks, and high-end retailers barricaded against a relentless tide of organized theft. One Canadian visitor's assessment was chillingly direct. "I once dreamed of seeing San Francisco. Now, every arrival is shadowed by a sense of dread." This is a devastating blow to the image of a city that built its brand on being progressive, innovative, and cosmopolitan. And the paradox is profound. While San Francisco remains the command center for global tech empires, it is failing at the fundamentals of safety, cleanliness, and basic human experience. Airlines are ruthlessly pragmatic entities. They will not service a destination that passengers actively avoid. For countless Europeans and Asians, San Francisco has plummeted down the rankings of desirable cities. Why risk a visit to SFO when Los Angeles, Vancouver, or Tokyo offer a clear promise of security and welcome? The economic fallout is metastasizing beyond tourism. The major conferences that once made this city a global nexus for networking are now migrating to Austin, Miami, and Seattle. Corporate hotel reservations are evaporating. The food courts inside the once thriving airport are now desolate spaces. Staff are being cut. Even Business Traveler US has officially downgraded SFO's standing, citing not an issue of service quality, but the complete implosion of the city's magnetic appeal. It is the ultimate paradox. The wealthiest city in the nation, bankrolled by tech fortunes, is powerless to defend the one artery that connects it to the global stage. If San Francisco can no longer persuade the world to touch down on its runways, can it still lay claim to the title of a global city? This question leads us to the final, most troubling case in this investigation. Not the wealthiest, not the most frenetic, but the one airport that was meant to be a testament to America's foundational identity. Today, it is condemned by traveler reviews, a vortex of operational chaos so severe that visitors are vowing to never return. That airport is Philadelphia. Number 1, Philadelphia, the birthplace of a nation, now its most broken gateway. If ever an airport was intended to embody the spirit of American pride, it is Philadelphia International. This is the portal to the Liberty Bell, to Independence Hall, to the very Declaration of itself, the cradle of modern democracy. Yet in 2025, PHL stands as a symbol of precipitous decline. According to Travel IQ, it has plummeted into the bottom 5 of all US airports. For passenger experience, an avalanche of complaints paints the grim picture. On Google, one-star reviews have skyrocketed by 300% in just 6 months. The scenes depicted by those who pass through are nothing short of chaotic. Families forced to sleep on terminal floors as baggage systems remain paralyzed for hours on end. Security lines, critically understaffed, swell into multi-hour ordeals, with some taking more than 3 hours to navigate. Stranded passengers now trade horror stories in the terminal's corridors. The reports are flooding in, narratives of chaos, vanished luggage, and a workforce stretched beyond its breaking point. A traveler from Toronto captured the sentiment perfectly. I landed mid-week only to be trapped for over 3 hours. It's absolute pandemonium, a system with no one at the controls. In response, the airlines are executing their only available contingency: retreat. The data reveals a strategic withdrawal. American Airlines has already severed multiple direct routes from Europe and the Caribbean, decimating Philadelphia's international arrivals by nearly 40% in just the first half of 2025. For global visitors, the calculus is brutally simple. Land in New York or Washington, where functionality is a given, rather than bet against the certainty of chaos in Philadelphia. Yet, this operational failure is merely a symptom of a much deeper pathology. Philadelphia's core has been eroded by a reverse migration, an exodus of residents that triggered a catastrophic collapse in tax revenue, leaving vital infrastructure like the airport to fall into a state of managed decline. When the budget flatlines and systemic mismanagement becomes the operational standard, an airport cannot serve as a global gateway. It transforms into a chilling cautionary tale. And this is the central tragedy. If the very cradle of the United States, the city that broadcasted America's creed of freedom, dignity, and progress to the world, can no longer provide a dignified welcome to its visitors, what signal does that send? For countless travelers, the verdict is in. Philadelphia is no longer the first chapter of the American story. It is a warning to steer clear. And so the pattern emerges nationwide. From the deserts of Las Vegas to the founding city of Philadelphia, from the fractured paradise of Hawaii to the tech capital of San Francisco, a void is growing in America's airports. This is not just a function of cost or bureaucracy, but a direct result of the American dream itself losing its luster. And until that fundamental trust is rebuilt, the seats on those planes will remain vacant. Here is the chilling truth. America's airports aren't just losing passengers, they are hemorrhaging credibility. If the world stops coming, the very idea of America risks a terminal decline. What is your assessment? What have you witnessed inside these terminals? Deposit your intel in the comment section and be sure to subscribe for our next critical briefing.